point that she put across, that immigration is to be celebrated?
Well, we do have benefits from immigration, as I said in my opening statement, but I think the choice really boils down to this. Nigel is saying there's nothing you can do inside the European Union, so just give up and leave. And Ed seems to be saying he doesn't want to renegotiate anything in Europe, so just give up altogether. I say get stuck in, renegotiate, get the changes we need, and then put those in an in-out referendum to the British people by the end of 2017. I've sat around that table in Europe and negotiated for Britain. You can get things done, and I've set out what I want to get done so that we can sort out this immigration issue once and for all.
But Mrs Merkel, who is the real boss in Europe, as we all know, has made it perfectly clear you can negotiate lots of things over the next couple of years, but you cannot renegotiate the free movement of peoples within the European Union, and that is backed up by the Commission President and the President of the European Council and the overwhelming majority of the European Parliament. Do you accept or not that in your renegotiation, free movement is not up for discussion?
I don't accept that. Nigel is basically give up before you've begun. In fact, if you look at my track record on Europe, I said cut the European budget. People said it was impossible. We cut that European budget. I said let's get out of these bailout funds where British taxpayers' money was being put into countries like Greece. People said you'll never do that. We got out of those Greek bailout funds. So instead of giving up, let's get stuck in and negotiate. And the problem with Nigel in the end is ultimately, Nigel, you're just the back door to a Labour government, which will give us open-door immigration, which is not what this country wants.
Ed Miliband.
David, I'm wondering what world you live in.
I think we all wonder that.
You talk about your negotiating skill in Europe. You made a big stand against the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker. You lost by 26 votes to 2 because you had no allies. And the problem is David Cameron has marginalised us in Europe. Now, look, I just want to be honest with people at home. There are false promises you get from David Cameron. He stood on this stage 5 years ago and said net migration into the tens of thousands, and he actually said, kick me out if I fail to deliver. Well, I suggest you do. But he failed on that promise, and he's going to make the promise again. And there's full solutions from Nigel Farage. I've just got to be frank with people. I don't think our place lies outside the European Union. I think that would be a disaster for jobs. I think that would be a disaster for families and businesses. Let's change Europe so it works better for us, including on immigration, but let's not sacrifice jobs, businesses and families.
Nick Clegg.
I think as far as immigration in the European Union is concerned, firstly I'd say the freedom to move around the European Union should never be the same as the freedom to claim benefits on the first day you arrive, no questions asked. And you have to split those two things off, and that's something that we have done. Secondly, it is a two-way street. There are almost as many Brits living elsewhere and living and working elsewhere in the European Union than there are Europeans working here. And finally, if we want to make sure that our own youngsters get the jobs that other people from elsewhere in Europe might want to get, we've got to train them up. And one of the things I'm most proud of over the last 5 years is that we've now got 2 million people starting new apprenticeships. It's the biggest increase in apprenticeships since the last war. And by the way, over half of those are women starting apprenticeships. So train up our own youngsters so that they get the jobs which they apply for here at home.
Nick makes an important point, which is that if you want to control immigration, there are 3 sides to this coin. You've got to have an education system that turns out young people that can do the jobs that our economy is creating. You've got to have a welfare system that makes sure that work always pays, and we've really helped to deliver that over the last few years. And you've got to have the immigration changes that I've been talking about. It's not simply about what happens in Europe. If I think of what we inherited, we had bogus colleges that were handing out visas like visa factories. We've shut them down. We had people who could claim benefits literally on arrival when Ed Miliband was in the cabinet there. We had people appealing in our courts against decisions made here. We've now said you have to go home and appeal from home. There are changes you can make.
Before we go any further, can I just remind all of us that diversity is one of our great strengths, and I can see that as I look out to this audience. Each and every one of those faith groups adds to the diversity of our society and to the essential strength of our communities. Strong, positive, resolute voices from all faiths and all nationalities which unite to oppose discrimination and which celebrate understanding, compassion and diversity.
Future. That diversity for any country and diversity for Scotland is not a weakness. It is, in my view, one of our greatest and most precious strengths.
Before we go any further, can I just remind all of us that diversity is one of our great strengths, and I can see that as I look out